Sometimes your genius design idea needs an escape hatch. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my podcast, Something I Learned Yesterday, in which I usually take an issue from the world of publishing and try to explain it in about 3 or 4 minutes. Today, I'm doing an interview with my friend Tricia Okin. We're going to talk about design. The show's going to be a little bit longer. Hi, everybody. So I'm really pleased today to have Tricia Okin join me. We're going to talk about some design issues. Tricia is a UX designer who she helps companies design both for the benefit of the company and also for the benefit of the public so that people are actually getting what they want out of a website, which is, of course, a very important thing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to riff off of something that my dad used to complain about. So first of all, welcome, Tricia. Thanks so much.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here today. We talk a lot, but just never in this context before. So my dad, Tricia, when I was a boy, my dad would have some circumstance where he would say, "Stop trying to help me." And I always thought he was just being a grump. It's just
Yeah.
like, what's going on here? But as I go through life and I see different circumstances where people are trying to help me and they're really not helping me. Like
Yeah.
you call in and there's one of those press 1 for this and press 2 for that, and it never matches what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
Right. So I was thinking, like, what are some examples of that happen in web design and app design and so forth? And how do you get away from them?
Yeah. So, by the way, with that, I just always just press 0. I just say like person until the system
That's
gives
right.
up and gives me person. Yeah. So in examples in interfaces and experience, one of my pet peeves, besides Clippy, the paperclip, like in Microsoft Word, which I believe finally went away. They finally like retired him and gave him a pension.
Yes.
Um, is personalization and recommendations,
Hmm.
right? And so we see recommendations, supposedly recommended content or products all the time now. It was a big deal like 10 years ago when people first started doing it, when companies first started doing it. But my issue is that, and for those who don't realize it, personalization recommendation is when supposedly an application or a website takes some of your browsing data and then based on that starts to create like a really basic profile for you and starts recommending like, oh, because you went to this particular page, you might like X, Y, or Z, right?
Yes.
However, the way that it really ticks me off is when in the case of using, let's say, social media feeds. So this even happens on LinkedIn, or let's say Facebook or whatever it may be, or Instagram or whatever other website, where after a certain point, because you've interacted with like a few people a couple of times, the algorithm then thinks that like you want to see
They're
those
your
same
besties,
people.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that they're your besties or something like that. And it keeps showing you the same 12 people when it's like, I know I'm connected to like 500 people. Why do you keep showing me the same
Only
12
these
people?
three. That's right.
Yeah,
That's a good
day in and day out.
example. Your
Yeah.
paperclip example was a great one too. I mean, everybody hated that thing, and it was trying to help you, but it really wasn't helping in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. I really felt bad for Clippy at some point.
So the personalization one, I've got a good example of that. I visit my brother once a week, and when I'm with him, he often asks me to look up something on my phone. Okay,
Oh,
to look up something in YouTube or something like that. Okay, so I look up stuff that he's interested in that I'm not interested in, but that
yes.
YouTube now thinks of that as something that I'm interested in, and now it shows up in my feed, right? So that's an example of where wouldn't it be better if I could curate my feed somehow?
Yes,
If it
exactly.
says, okay, this is what I think you're interested in, I can go through and say, no, I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah, to remove that. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So another
Yeah.
example I thought of was like autofill. Autofill is a great thing, or in predictive text. Those can be helpful, but sometimes like you're trying to type in something and it autofills and then it ends up searching on the autofill instead of what you're actually
Yes.
trying to type,
Yeah.
right?
That grinds my gears as well.
So how do
So
you avoid that sort of thing? How, when in your design work, how do you make sure that the kinds of customizations and personalizations and so forth aren't being annoying like that?
I mean, genuinely, I'm someone who's always in favor of the escape hatch, of people being able to exit out of this particular section of the experience, whether it's, one of those really long landing pages, let's
Right.
say like marketing landing pages that people are designing or what have you. When I used to design those for a very, very long time, and I always made sure to just say like fine, I'll like click here and I'll join now button, whatever it is in different stages. So people just have a way to skip all the other guff if they need to, if
Right.
they're tired, unconvinced. Yeah. I mean, in the case of the personalization or the autofill, just the ability to say like to just like a little X to like tap out of that. That's all you
Hmm.
need in order
Hmm.
to then let people go back to what it is that they were trying to do, the task that they were trying to accomplish. And what that's called within user experience design is called reducing the friction.
Hmm.
You reduce the friction in terms of in order to help people achieve the tasks that they are trying to achieve or that you want them to achieve.
Sure.
So you can even put in those small incidences of ways to reduce the friction for folks. And the same thing with the personalization. And there are a couple of instances where I have seen where some recommendations come up, in the you looked at this or what have you, where it's given me the option to say like, no, take this out. I actually don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And I'm always grateful whenever I see that because otherwise it's like I'm not interested in vintage tractors. I searched that one time and I don't need to now see like Tractor Monthly or whatever it is.
That's
So
right. So I like your phrase escape hatch is so much better than stop trying to help me. But yeah, having an escape hatch, having an out, I like
yeah.
that idea. And being able to curate what the company thinks, what they think they know about you, being able to go, I don't know why that's not uh, more of a feature on websites where they have all this information. Why can't they just expose it to the consumer and say, this is what we know? And you could go in and say, erase it or no, this is wrong or whatever.
Because it would scare a lot of people actually, how much
Yeah,
information
because
you
people
have.
don't know how much information people are really collecting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and this is one thing living in Europe. And even though the UK, I live in the UK and it's out of the EU now, but they still abide by some EU rules with in terms of cookies, website cookies,
Right.
declarants.
GDPR and
And
all that, right?
yeah, GDPR. And so you're able to declare if you're willing to accept a certain level of cookies or tracking.
Hmm.
And my husband, who's like a developer, and he knows about internet stuff, he just accepts cookies. I'm like, what are you doing? But I think it's because he clears his cookies every single day. I don't. And so I literally go through and I will on every single website, I will uncheck like literally there are 1,000 different companies that are gathering information on you.
Yeah.
If you ever if you're ever in a situation, let's say you're outside the US or you're like in an international site that shows you if you want to accept or decline cookies,
Hmm.
go through. There are literally 1,000 different
Yeah.
software scripts on
It's
every
amazing.
single website.
I was in a session one time where this guy was showing just on a basic, simple WordPress site. They installed a couple of plugins and how many things, okay, the plugin is gathering this information, which is going out to this other service, which is going out to this other service. And he showed just from, I think it was from 3 plugins, how there were hundreds of different sites that were actually collecting data from that visit.
Yeah, exactly.
Very
Yeah.
strange. So Tricia, we're running out of time. How do you avoid this? Like, what's your method for making sure you say you design not only for the company's benefit, they're the ones who are paying you, but also for the benefit of the users. How do
Yeah.
you ensure that you're doing things in a way that is helpful to the users?
Oh man, I'm definitely a champion of the underdog. But in the case of, and I was just thinking more about features and all of these different like app features that websites may have, and this also applies in this field of publishing, because I remember you asking about things about reading, different services too, is to kind of make a regular audit of your services
Hmm.
and features in order to understand what it is that you're providing your customers and be ruthless and just try to understand like how much is XYZ feature being used
Uh,
and is it being used frequently enough? Like what's your bar for it for being frequent? Who's it being used by? why are they using it? That's the main thing, is to understand why are people using X, Y, or Z. And then start to look as to whether or not you might be one or two features that you're trying to pop up and say like, hey, this feature is here, X, Y, or Z. Maybe that feature's there because you hit it, because 20 people are using it, and now you think you have to like pop up a little bubble about it, right? So does that feature need sunsetting?
Right.
Does it need to be improved? Can it evolve into something else? Or can it be integrated into another feature? Quite possibly,
Yeah.
right? So, and
You're
be
kind of
absolutely,
talking about bloat there, right? Just having
yeah,
too many
well,
things.
yeah, too many things. Just make sure you're trying to actually serve the core functions of what people need and what you may need them to do. And believe it or not, you may not need as much information about people as you think you do,
Hmm.
right?
So you can do surveys, you can actually talk to people, or you can do um, well, you can talk to people or you can do surveys online. Do you do both of those kinds of things?
Yes, I do. Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of times what I do actually is first of all, I get folks to ask the really risky questions, as in what is it that we don't know? What is it we're trying to find out right now?
Hmm.
And from there, that's how we then screen the people via surveys, quite possibly. We screen folks to whom we would like to speak. And that's when you start to understand the why, the qualitative behind all the quantitative data that you may have. You
Right.
may, because you may analyze your analytics and say like X, Y, Z is happening, but you don't necessarily know why. So
Yes.
then you're talking to people to understand the qualitative reasons behind that.
Right. Maybe everybody uses your search because your site is so poorly organized that they can't find anything. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Right. Maybe they don't really like search. They just have to use it because there's no other
Maybe.
option. Tricia, thanks so much for showing up on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. I look forward. I see you all the time. I'll see you in a couple of days. And thanks so much. And anybody, if you're interested, how can people contact you if they want to find out about your services?
Yeah, sure. So you can go to my website, which is Tricia, Tricia. It's like Patricia without the PA. So it's Tricia Okin, OKIN.com. Or you can find me with the same name on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/ Tricia Okin.
And I'll put all that information in the show notes and so forth so people can get in touch with you.
Right. Thank you very
All
much, Greg,
right.
for having
Thank
me.
you.